Welcome to Newsroom. I'm KEDJANG Henry in Douala, Cameroon. Cameroonian workers celebrated the 128th edition of the International Labour Day under the theme Fighting HIV Stigma in Companies. How relevant is this theme as workers' unions are fighting for better working conditions for the employees? Plus the media, which is equally celebrating the World Press Freedom Day today. How free is the press in Cameroon since the putting in place of the liberty laws of the 90s? Plus, the endless problem of land grabbing will constitute our meaning for today's edition of the program. Thanks for joining me and welcome to Newsroom. Welcome if you are joining us. This is Newsroom. First things first, our profile for today. He is Barrister Kemende Henry Kemende. He is a barrister at law, of course, coming all the way from the Northwest region. Thanks, Barrister, for having accepted my invitation.
Thank you very much, Mr. KEDJANG. It's a pleasure being with Canal Plus today.
Canal International.
Canal International for the first time.
All right. You're welcome. And how is, should we say, upcountry faring?
Oh, no, we are faring well. You know, that's the only place where without money we live well.
And I must break this ice with you by asking, you had the news about the freedom granted to former delegate, government delegate to the Douala City Council, Edouard Etonde Koto, a legal mind. How did you welcome that?
Well, I'm just seeing it, Mr. Henry, I'm seeing it for the first time, but it's actually a headline news in the Guardian Post. In fact, I'm yet to digest the reasons why Etonde Koto has been freed. But maybe he has been freed as usual for the case not having been well established. Maybe there were some procedural lapses, or maybe it's by some, underground cables. One cannot know. But what is clear is that
are you really holding the legal system ransom?
Well, I don't know. Because they said the court session was actually summoned. Surprisingly, nobody expected it, and it was summoned, and just for this purpose. I don't know the circumstances, but until one is privy to the facts of the case, you cannot actually make any declaration with regard to what has militated the discharge of Etonde Koto.
Well, thanks very much, Barrister, and I want to say welcome to Douala, despite the scorching heat. Well, he is Patrick Moi. He is the Littoral and Southwest Regional Bureau Correspondent of the Guardian Post newspaper. Thanks very much, Patrick, for having made it to our studio.
Thank you very much, KEDJANG, and it is my utmost pleasure to be part of this program.
Today, the press is celebrating its day, and of course, the frenzy is not as it used to be this time around, in Cameroon particularly.
Well, maybe because those who are involved, they are not comfortable with the current trend of affairs. I think that we can not say that we are celebrating press freedom because, to my best of understanding, I'm not sure that the press in the country is totally free.
Free, but then talking about the freedom, it's like the media themselves, or the media men and women are moving in dispersed ranks. We always see them come out during, celebrations, and knowing that many chapters have gone comatose in different unions.
Yeah, you're right. There exist several unions that brings together journalists. But I think that on a day like this, we must come on a common platform to reflect on issues concerning the profession so that we can forge ahead.
And your paper carried another issue, very important one, when President Biya is back, and he's coming back to Cameroon. He's creating panic around the ranks of the ministers.
Yeah, why not, KEDJANG? You should understand at this very point in time that the new government it has overdue. We have waited for the new government for too long. It has become almost unconventional that after every major elections in this country, there's always a cabinet reshuffle. So us Cameroonians, this time around, we are surprised that we are 4 months after the September 30 polls. We are yet to have the new government.
Well, maybe the cabinet of President Paul Biya might come with a new government. Well, thanks, gentlemen, for having made it to our studio, and we're expecting our last guest. But then, let's have our story of the week. Labor Day celebrations took place across the country, but then we have this report coming in from Douala. Cameroon's economic capital, Douala, was gripped in frenzy as millions of workers of the private and public sector converged at the KEDJANG ceremonial ground on May 1 for Labor Day festivities. The feast began with workers' union, then those of the public sector, and then the private sector march passing the ceremonial grandstand. Literal delegate for Labor and Social Security situates the context of this year's celebration.
I think the organization was best than last year, and we are going to improve to make a reflection about the amelioration for the next feast.
The 128th Labor Day celebration was presided at by the Literal Regional Governor, Joseph Betty Asomo. Welcome back. Barrister, you've got that report, and the team is fighting stigma, the HIV stigma in companies. Did it carry any good message to you?
I will always ask the question, why only HIV stigma? What even causes a stigma? That's a question we need to ask ourselves. And then how do you even come to realize that somebody is HIV positive or he has AIDS? I think it's because of the living conditions, because we have many carriers outside there who are hardly identified. You see them, they are as healthy as any person, or they go about their work without any stigmatization, because nobody even can associate them to the AIDS. Meanwhile, they have it in their system. So the question is, what makes those workers who carry signs of the AIDS on them, what makes them get to that particular situation? I think it's a matter of conditions of work, their living conditions, their living standard. I think there's no gainsay the fact that if you are a victim of, if you have been attacked, if you are a victim of HIV or you are AIDS infected, and you don't live well, it will come out. It will come out on you, and it will be seen by any person, and that's where the stigma begins. So the first thing to be sure about, to ensure for workers, is the high standard of living, good conditions of work, in order they can have enough salary to take care of themselves health-wise, so that even if they have the HIV, it will not get to that stage of AIDS, or it will not portray their faces such as to warrant the stigma that we are talking about. That's my opinion about it.
Now, many unions hold that, or many people hold that the HIV stigma is even not welcome, because previously this team has been coming up at this time, instead of bringing something that would maybe better the condition. I know, yes, fighting the stigma means something very positive, but then celebrating when you don't have a good salary, celebrating when the conditions are not the best. Were you comfortable with that theme?
Not at all. Not at all. First, because I think that the authorities concerned, they are simply chasing the shadow and allowing the object. I think on a day like that, I don't see HIV/AIDS to be a problem to workers. I think workers have so many problems. They have quite a plethora of problems that ought to be addressed. And how can you address it? It's only by identifying those problems, come out with a team that will embody everything that concerns the problem. That is a summary of the problem, and then look for ways of providing solutions to those problems. I think that HIV and AIDS is just one of the killer diseases in the world. I don't know why they're much concerned about HIV on the day that laborers are coming out to decry poor working conditions.
Barrister, when you look at our context, we came out with fabrics, well, beautifully dressed, we dine, we wine, and everything goes. But when you look at the Western way across, in fact, on Labor Day, the specificity was the case of Turkey, where the workers, there was sporadic rioting across the country for better conditions. Now, do you think we are comfortable? Okay, looking at that, marching, dining, whining, and dancing means that we are comfortable with our situation.
Not at all, not at all.
Two extremes.
The thing is that the public authorities seem to have hijacked the Labor Day. Labor Day was not a matter of public authorities, or it was not a matter of celebrations, or it was not a matter of workers whining and dining with their employers. Actually, it was a day that people thought. In fact, if you know how the Labor Day came about, even, it's actually a question of laborers people, workers, raising the awareness of the public towards their plight. You see, it's a day that you're supposed to hear speeches which are really targeting the employers or targeting the public authorities for what they ought to do and which they are not doing to better the health, to better the working conditions of the workers. But now we see, since we are in a celebrating country, I think Cameroon should be one of the world's most rated country that celebrates almost everything and is wonderful as far as
celebrating everything.
Celebrating everything.
Now, celebrating, Barrister, without taking into consideration, because some of the employers do not apply the minimum wage legislation.
Do some of the employers even know about the minimum wage, or do some of the workers even know about the minimum wage? They only hear it, and maybe they hear it as a terminology which they need to be enlightened on it. They just hear minimum wage rate. They don't know what it stands for. You see people going every day with salaries less than the minimum wage rate was 23 point something, 23,000 something. It has been raised to 28,000. Nobody knows about it. And even some of the employers don't even intend that their employees should ever even understand what is meant by the minimum wage rate, because they are always paying below. And even when they pay up to the minimum wage rate, they cut all the charges
and taxes and so on.
Everything, and then it comes down to maybe less than 20,000 francs. And they think that they are respecting the minimum wage rate, of which is something which workers are supposed to be educated about. They know what is the minimum wage rate and how they can claim their right to that. You see, but they negotiate. They are given transport money in terms of minimum wage rate, or in terms of salary, which is actually something we decry very seriously. It is high time that the public authorities they don't put a lot of focus on this Labor Day. So the laborers should come out, and there should be no caution down of employees when it comes to. They should give them the right to make their speech, to bring out their cry to the public place, in order that the world or the public authorities could help them towards ameliorating their working conditions. I think it's something very important, because without good working conditions, we cannot be sure about output. And output is what every firm is looking for. Without good working conditions, if a worker is not sure of having 3 square meals a day, and he happens to be a victim of HIV for going by this thing, in fact, the situation will deteriorate so fast that before long, and you are not entitled to dismiss him or her because of his health status. And you see yourself obliged to keep somebody whose production is dropping on a daily basis, and you don't. We miss the point. The point is because they don't enjoy good working conditions, because there are many 1,001 workers outside there who have HIV, who are HIV positive, but you can never make it from their appearance as long as they live well.
Arbitrary dismissal. Immediately we celebrate. We hear some people are dismissed the following day because they drank to stupor and they don't go to work. Patrick, it means that the workers, their conditions will never get better. Yeah, at least for the majority.
Yeah, it's even quite embarrassing to hear that people drank to stupor on that day, because I don't know what people were celebrating on a day like that. First of all, we cannot be celebrating the International Labour Day in a country where the unemployment rate stands above 9.3%. Meanwhile, underemployment...
Did you say 9.3%?
Yes, and underemployment is above 76. Underemployment, therefore, people who are employed, but at the end of the day, they take home is not enough to take them home, And those are the same people who come out dressed in beautiful fabrics, they want to show the best of their hairdos, wearing flamboyant shoes and stuff to celebrate. It was embarrassing for me to see people drinking to stupor on that day. It ought to have been a day for mourning. We should mourn our working condition rather than celebrating on a day like that. I was quite impressed when I saw some workers of the National Social Insurance Fund came out with placards denouncing certain issues within the corporations, which, according to them, is not going well. Rather than, you see, people in other places, it was total enjoyment, total smiles, on a day where people are saying that their working conditions are not good, but those are the same people who are ready to chip in money, contribute money to cook food, huge quantity of food, buy the fabrics, and celebrate the day. But at the same time, they are complaining. So it was paradoxical with the messages that they carried on the day, and how the day ended was a direct opposite of what the day ought to be.
Barrister talked of hijacking the ceremony by the public authorities. In that sense, will it mean that the public authorities should not feast the Labor Day? They should allow it for trade unionists to do the job?
Yeah, I think it's high time the public authority, the hands off the organization of a day like that. I think this is a day for the employers and the employees to sit on the same platform and talk issues. This is a day for dialogue. It's a day of reflection. It is not a day that the public authorities organize and bring people. I must tell you that, though I don't know the specific amount of money that was used to organize that day by the government of Cameroon, I think that money, if put together, it can change the life of hundreds of Cameroonians.
Barrister, employers generally are not comfortable, in having a dialogue with their employees. And some of the times when the employees constitute themselves maybe to negotiate, it's like they are threatening, the employers feel threatened. And maybe to keep them quiet, they now send another threatening or warning shots, threatening them.
I can understand.
You can be fired.
I can understand, and of which is not legal. In fact, I can understand from where you're coming, and I don't think the employers of Cameroon are different from the government of this country. There's no gainsaying the fact. We have come to realize it conclude within the years that the government hates the opposition. The government hates until it has come to a point whereby when you are saying anything, when you say certain things, you make certain proposals with regard to the governance of your country, they first of all ask, which party do you belong? And if you belong, and what if you belong to the opposition, they'll say, no, that's an opposant, what do you expect from him? In fact, as if the ideas that you carry along with you, or as if becoming a member of a political party means that a political party sponsored you from nursery one right to the university level where the party met you. You see, it is actually absurd that we give color to ideas. It is the same scenario that obtains with employers and the employees. Just as the government will not want to listen on anything that the opposition is saying in order to, as far as good governance is concerned, so too the employers, they don't want to listen to anything that is coming from the employees, which is intended to better their working conditions, and which better working conditions will obviously lead to better yields, will obviously lead to higher productivity for the company, and the employer will make more profit. And which profit the employee is just asking that, as long as you are making more profit, please just give my own due. You see, just give my own little due of that profit. I'm not interested in what you make as an employer in terms of profit, but just give what I deserve. Cameroon is party to many international labor organizations, conventions, treaties. No, Cameroon is very generous when it comes to signing these treaties.
We sign very fast.
Oh, we sign very fast because that's to show that we are democratic and we accept everything that goes with the modern world, or goes with the modern standards, new world order, so to speak. But then when we sign, when it comes to implementation, in fact, we are almost zero. Right? Because if you look at it very well, even though the rate at which you are giving unemployment, employment rate is higher. Because there are many persons who are occupying other offices, who are serving in one field or the other, that would have loved to change if they have the least opportunity. So those people are technically unemployed because they are not serving where they want to actually serve. So if given the least opportunity, I just say there for the sake of employment. Many people are teachers because they were looking for unemployment and the teaching opportunity came up and they just fitted themselves there. But if you want to look at job satisfaction, they don't have it. So those who don't enjoy job satisfaction where they are working, they are obviously technically unemployed. So those people are supposed to be rated because they don't give the best of themselves. So they're supposed to be classified. They're supposed to take part of them and put under the unemployment rate that we have in this country, and you see that the number will grow.
Barrister is just talking there about job satisfaction. That should be a stigma to improve on productivity.
And
but we discover that the fact that you are fitted where you are not supposed to be is instead causing a lot of trouble, and at the end of the day you might not be productive, and why not retrenched from the company?
Yeah, I think that Barrister is right. In a country where everybody just wants to be employed, not necessarily because he will be able to,
or there's a calling.
Yeah, you cannot talk about the calling in a country where bribery and corruption has eaten deep in our marrow. Everybody wants to succeed, and it's difficult for you to follow your course. Take, for example, a student who, for example, studied sciences in the high school, and after the advanced level, struggled to get his admission maybe into QS for 4 years continuously, and is failing. Meanwhile, others who are incompetent, others who had even lower points in school, find their way through because of money. You think that if ENS or other concours come by that same student, he will certainly get into a field that is not where he or she was supposed to get into.
Exactly.
And at the end of the day, the output, I've seen teachers, even when we're in secondary school, you see teachers that come to class mostly women, all they do is to cut their nails, do their pedicure and their manicure in class.
And this.
You know, and they install you that at the end of the day or at the end of the month or have their salary. Those are not people, those are not teachers that had the skills as inborn. You know, those are people just went there because of the quest for money.
You know. And the teaching field, that is the only field whereby
it's a very sensitive field.
You have members of all in the various ministries, so you have teachers there. That's true. All the ministries. If you can prove me, wrong. I say this without any fear of contradiction. In all the ministries, you have teachers who were trained in ENS, higher ENS or lower ENS. They abandoned the classroom, and they are counted as far as the workforce of the Ministry of Education is concerned. They are counted as teachers, and they are supposed to be in the classrooms. And you know, it is in record that the Cameroon government has trained this number of teachers. How many of them are in the field? That's a question we are having. Go to every ministry. You have teachers there. They have just been sent there on secondment, and they are doing jobs for which they were never trained.
Collective convention is another issue when it comes to the labor law of barrister. Workers, employers do not want to apply certain conventions or collective bargaining that they are told to do by the labor ministry.
Exactly, and that collective convention has somewhat the force of law. Once it has been homologated, once it has been agreed upon by the parties. You know, you need to know exactly the process by which collective conventions come about. Once it has been signed between the parties and is been promulgated by the competent ministry, in fact, it becomes law somehow. It becomes law, and should in case a matter if they have dispute and they go to court for a labor dispute, those definitions, those standards set by those collective conventions are taken to consideration and respected to the latter. So I'm just making this point that any employer who is not respecting collective convention in a sector that deals with its employment, or in a sector that deals with his company, let him know that he's just been a penny wise and a pound foolish. Because if he doesn't pay a particular worker who is in service for the particular period of time that he will save and get his job terminated, let him know that at the end of the day, if there's a labor dispute, everything will be calculated in arrears and paid over to that worker. So he will just be being a penny wise and a pound foolish.
Let us just go back to the theme more, Patrick. The theme talks much about fighting stigma, HIV stigma. But when we look at issues like industrial accidents, people die more, and these figures are not released because the conditions put in place, safety and security measures are absent in many of these companies, and people die more caused by these than the HIV/AIDS thing that we're talking about.
Yeah. Like I said a while ago, the theme, according to me, is irrelevant within the context of what obtains in the job market today, because workers have a lot of problems. I think the issue of stigma at the workplace, because of your status as HIV positive, it is, to me, it's not much an issue. There are a lot of problems. I don't know whenever the themes of international days are, when they are being crafted, I don't know who are the people who are involved. Do they bring in the people who are concerned? I think this is not a day for officials or authorities, public authorities, to impose on the workers, on the laborers, what should be the main issue of the day. Because the day is for the workers, it's for the laborers. They know these issues. I think that trade unions should be incorporated, brought in, so that at the end of the day, whatever comes out as a team or as a focus for a day should be a direct reflection of what obtains on the field.
And if I may add something, Mr. Henry, before we continue, if I may add something, I think that making the HIV issue, it's the theme of a Labor Day, International Labor Day organization, International Labor Day as the first May that just passed. I think in itself is providing stigmatization of the HIV patients. I'm telling you that because the theme itself has brought out the issue of AIDS positivity or HIV positivity.
Well,
it has brought out the stigma on the patients who are suffering, who are employees working for these companies. You get the point? Because some people might not have even thought of it. But now, making it a team, people now think of who are those amongst us? Who are those amongst us, the workers, who have got this HIV, who are targeted as far as this theme is concerned? So I can really say without fear of any contradiction that this theme in itself creates stigma, which is wrong, which is actually what is an error that was committed by the authorities. And
Barrister, they say the screening exercises a secret deal. Their results belong to you and the person who conducted the test.
Yes, but even just to draw awareness to the fact that there are some employees who are HIV positive. You see, people may go around and looking, examining themselves, you know, and using parameters that are known to them. Who are those who are targeted by this team of this Labor Day? And they will now start stigmatizing each other. Because somebody may look at his other brother, his other colleague, and say, "But I look stronger, you look weaker. It's really, this team is really meant for you." And it will start. That would be another subject of stigmatization. So by making this team a whole team for a Labor Day celebration, it's actually creating stigmatization in itself. I think that the authorities were wrong. Because we have many other illnesses that can affect the productivity. You see?
I'm very fascinated.
Yes, many other illnesses that kill. But they have never put it as a theme of a Labor Day celebration.
It's very frightening indeed.
Yes, in fact, when you talk about, when you think of, how do you call this other illness again that affects the blood?
Cancer?
There's cancer. There's
diabetes.
Diabetes. That's what I was talking about.
Which
diabetes
is very fast.
It's killing and it weighs on the people, on the workers more than HIV. Because HIV is not even an illness. It's not even an illness, so to speak. It is a situation. It's a circumstance.
And there have a lot of cardiovascular arrest and so on.
Exactly. Whereby the body is arrested by circumstances beyond its control, and then any illness comes in. HIV in itself is not actually an illness, so to speak. It is a condition into which the body is placed, making it vulnerable to many to illnesses that come in. And those are the illnesses that come in that cause the death of the patient, and not the HIV in itself.
Yeah, maybe KEDJANG to add to what Barrister had said a while ago. I think there are a lot of illnesses that are more dangerous even than HIV. You know, with HIV, you can still go to your workplace. You can see.
With the
antiretrovirals, you can always be healthy, looking healthy, and strong enough to work. Take a case of other illnesses like malaria, cholera, and others. You become bedridden. There are illnesses that renders you bedridden. You cannot even move. So we move around with a lot of people who are HIV positive. But at the end of the day, they still produce. Their output is high. So I don't know what really prompted the authorities concerned with the organization of the International Labour Day to come out to craft out a team that will only focus on HIV and AIDS.
And cause more stigma, like Barrister is saying.
Yeah, instead remind workers that it means that amongst us, there are people who are HIV positive, or who should be fired, like you say.
All right, thanks, gentlemen. Let us just have one more story of the week, and we shall come back. The debate was rife, arguments coherent, and the actors were looking at themselves eyeball to eyeball, as if to say, let us bury our differences. First encounter, Steve Dawes versus the general manager of the Port Authority of Douala. The actors in the Maritime Chain met on April 30 to bury their differences on the confusion that is reigning at the Douala seaport. Then it was the time of the Association of Rice Importers of Cameroon, who think they are being muzzled by the Ports Authority. Abdul Aziz is an importer of rice and a member of the Association of Rice Importers of Cameroon.
Right now, for instance, rice is a crop that is having a harvest period. And it's that period that we place orders. An importer or a trader can have 3 ships that are being discharged at the anchorage. So now they are asking a ship to be cleared within 11 days. What they are asking us to do in 11 days is what they are not able to do in 30 days, because a vessel of 18 tons is being discharged around 30 days, working days, meaning what? Meaning more than a month for the cargo to leave just the ship to get to the port warehouses. And now they are asking us to clear the goods between the port warehouses to our warehouses that are located about 2-3 kilometers away of the port premises, to do that in 11 days, which is technically impossible. The PAD, Port Autonome de Douala, has laid down a standard of 500 tons to be cleared per day. So divide 18,000 tons by 100. you will have how many days? 36 days. So this is the working days. And Douala is one of the most raining towns in the world. When rain is falling, you cannot have any operation of rice. If not, you are running the risk of depreciating the goods. And we cannot dilute the quality.
After frantic discussions, the protagonists in the maritime chain arrived at a consolatory consensus. The main gate at the southern end of the seaport would be opened for traffic as congestion is the order of the day. With this disorder, the Douala seaport of Cameroon was listed black on the list of unethical ports along the West African coast. Welcome back. Thanks for joining us on the program. This is Newsroom. Patrick, you had the Mr. Abdulaziz, frowning there on the instructions of the Douala Ports Authority for them to clear their goods in 11 days, to clear a vessel of rice, which they say is practically impossible.
Yeah, it's a worrying situation. I think that the decision, according to the report we just watched, is a decision that is not welcome, because it's practically impossible from the analysis made by the importer. It's a situation that must be handled. Like he said, they are importing or they are dealing with items that can be that can depreciate very fast, depending on the condition under which those imports are being transferred from the ship to the warehouses. It's a serious problem that needs to be addressed before it gets to.
Barrister?
It's really, that takes us to one question, one problem that our country is always suffering. We behave as if it is today that we've created the National Ports Authority. I think the port of Douala has been existing for decades, for ages. And they must have actually understood things, how the rate at which things go in that port. You see, this takes us to the element of feasibility studies.
Is it like saying to manage a port is so complicated an issue?
How can it be complicated? Meanwhile, we are not having experience today. The port of Douala has not been created today. It has been there. It has been on for decades. It has been on since independence. We have been working at that port. So at least this warrants that before come about with any decision, at least do some feasibility studies. Carry out some study and see how practicable that decision can work. You see, don't just go into, because you've heard that maybe in Europe, where they use machines, they use these robots to clear goods and all and all. Maybe you think that, it can operate in Douala and just come with it. But just get up one morning and come out with a decision that ports, the rice should be cleared from the Douala ports within 11 days. No, you must go back memory lane and see whether it has ever happened that way, and how possible it is for it to happen that way before you come out with a decision. If not, in fact, you make a real
Abdulaziz talk of the impossibility in 11 days, especially when conditions are not the best.
They're not the best. In fact, and I feel bad when our public authorities take such decisions and they end up in the papers. When they're not executed, they make us look like like a nation that doesn't function properly. You see, because it's not just a matter of taking a decision, but seeing that the decision has been effectively implemented. And when it's not implemented, it looks like a paper tiger, and it brings ridicule to bear on our nation.
The press is celebrating its day today. Some people say the press is celebrating Christmas. The 3rd of May, moi, Patrick, we had earlier on mentioned in the passing that the press comes, it's like they look at themselves seriously only when celebrations are, or only on the 10th of May.
Well, it's not an issue too peculiar with the press as a core. I think it's a situation that is almost general in the country. We always see people, always see organizations, always see people come out only when there is during festive period. But I think what should be much an issue on a day like this, KEDJANG, is for us to sit on the table. It is high time government and the press, we share a common ground. That a lot of issues have been going on wrong since the convention, the 1990 Press Freedom Law. That law has not been obeyed to the latter. I feel very embarrassed in a country where the lives of journalists are being threatened, where journalists are arrested like criminals, like hoodlums in the quarters, and detained without any warrant of arrest, without any discharge. It's embarrassing. It makes the profession one that becomes delicate. People are afraid to write issues. People are afraid to exercise their duty as journalists. I think that it's high time the government of Cameroon decriminalize the issues concerning defamation and libel.
Barrister, when we look at, he talked about decriminalizing, but when we look at the theme which has to do with media freedom in Cameroon, the practice and post-2015 development agenda, some would like to say development vision, because that issue of vision is like a new vocabulary.
For all, by the year 2000 came on past, we have 2035 now to look on.
That is it. So, can we say that the press is free in Cameroon?
Well, before I proceed to answer your question, Mr. Henry, I think I must congratulate the private press, the private media for the daring nature as far as handling certain issues are concerned, as far as bringing certain issues to the public is concerned. You see, I had once heard the press complaining about sources of information. You see, when you are dealing with a system, when you deal with a system, with a government that is supposed to dole out information, supposed to give out information and in the most authentic manner, because that's the information of the authorities that people believe. But when you find it difficult to get information from even a quarter where you think that they could have actually given you the information to publish, you could have even said help them to sell out their policies. You see, they deny you that information. So what do you think the press should do? It's actually unfortunate that we have that type of situation still existing. We're talking about press freedom. There can be no press freedom whereby the journalists cannot really have access to information. They have to go, stealing, or at times sitting by the window. They have locked and shut the doors for them. They are trying to peep in to gather information. They are trying to get information from sources that are not reliable, you see. And I always like to, at least those some of the people, when they come out, I like the collaboration with, given by some of the members of government, or some of those people some of the people working in those quarters where the information is necessary, because they come out and they give information undercover to the journalists, and that they should not name them. And the journalists are always putting it in a very technical way. Anonymous or from a reliable source.
A source that has not to be mentioned.
I want to thank those people who work by their consciences and who think that it is important that the journalists should have the right information, and they give out, even though they give the information without their names. I want to congratulate them very well for assisting the journalists to do their job. They're just merely trying to do their job by informing the masses, by informing us. I think that is what actually the law with regard to press freedom is all about, to inform the public so that there should be no rumors, because rumors could burn our society, and we've seen what rumors have done in this society.
And the other societies.
And the other societies. So when you don't give information to the journalists, you intend that they should work on rumors, and when they work on rumors, they help to they bring the country on his knees, as it happens in other places where the information is not flowing.
It was rumored, like Barrister is saying, Patrick, it was rumored that after the EU summit, some other presidents went back to their respective countries. President Paul Biya did not come back to Cameroon, and it was rumored that his whereabouts was not known. And just like Barrister was saying, access to information. The people wanted to know where the president was, and the rumors came to be true that he will be traveling to Vatican. So do you think that it is high time the presidency communicate on the president's agenda?
It is not only an issue of it's not only an issue of the presidency.
Before
it's a real problem. The outcry is general. Even at institutions that you think that you easily have your way in and have information, it becomes even difficult to the extent that you just imagine that if you were to, let's say, head to the presidency to obtain certain information, then it will take you years. Because, everybody now has become his own landlord. We now see even authorities, people that should be open to the press, open to the community. They are serving the community, but they now carry names, Shefte and others. You go to them, you spend hours. Spend hours waiting just to get an information from a local authority in an area.
What do you think they might be afraid of?
Well, it's a bottleneck. They fear the unknown. The fear of the unknown has always been the problem. That if I give you this information, hierarchy will, you know, the hierarchy. I don't know whether it's a new coinage in the country because the issue of hierarchy is too particular to Cameroon. Somebody say, I cannot give you this information because hierarchy has not permitted me to do so. You know, information that is at the disposal of that person. It becomes difficult. In fact, we should be honest to ourselves to appreciate government for creating a very veritable environment where a lot of press organs can operate. But that is not enough. You know, the freedom of the press cannot be limited to the existence of
the proliferation of media outlets.
How do they operate? You know, it's just a kind of way to create an image to the international community that there's freedom of press in the country. Because it is really easy for you to create and run a media organ in this country. But how do you operate? How do you operate under very difficult conditions? You don't have access to information. There's harassment, you know, a very simple information that could be made available to the public. You know, there's even a law. One of the articles of the 1990 Press Freedom Law stipulates that after every public presentation, it is obligatory for the person who presents a speech in public to hand over copies to the press and to other authorities around. But we have seen it in several occasions where a public authority presents a speech somewhere. It being written, we're talking about a manuscript, and refuse to hand over copies to the press. And then now, if the press goes as far as writing something that might be considered by the person that is false, how do we go back to our notes when those documents are not put at the disposal of the press? It becomes difficult.
The National Communication Council created as a regulatory body made up of seasoned persons. Do you think, Barrister, it will cleanse the sector progressively?
Well,
or facilitate, cleanse, there's always a word they like to use, quacks, and then facilitate access to credible information or source of information.
You know, Mr. KEDJANG, without giving my opinion with regard to what you said before when you posed the question to Mr. Patrick Moore, in fact, I would not be very happy about our head of state. In fact, we all voted the head of state into office. And it's just like I'm here with Canal de Television. My family, my wife knows that I'm here. My children know that I'm here. So this is like the father of the nation, the head of state. He's a father of the nation. He's whereabouts at every given moment. Even at times, even his private life. He has no private life even. You see, his whereabouts should be known to the Cameroon. And I want to thank the press again for daring. For each time he goes out and stays or leaves his usefulness over there, the press always call him back home. That when you start seeing headline newspapers, finding him, where is he in his work? And I think that he feels pleasure being out of his country than here. And that's the reason for which, after finishing from that seminar, that program that they had there, he had reason to just stay around. And when it just dawned on him that there was something taking place at the Papa...
They will tell you that the president is having his right to a deserved rest.
But then let him take a rest. We know that he's on rest. Nobody will bother him about that. He is due leave. As any Cameroonian worker, he is due leave. He's a worker for the nation. He is due leave. Let him go for leave. If he needs leave, he can take a leave period of one. Nobody will ask his whereabouts. He can enjoy that period. But when he is not on leave and he is out of the country for a purpose and the meeting is over, everybody is returned to his country and he just sojourns somewhere else unknown to the public, we will become worried. It's just like when questions were being raised about his whereabouts, and then the issue of the Vatican just came up. He just said, okay, now let me make it now look, as if, I was interested. But maybe certainly he was not interested in that Vatican issue. He just came up as to punctuate his stay out. With regard to the National Communication Council question you asked me of, I think the National Communication Council has been a shadow of itself, because it's supposed to regulate what takes place at the press. But we have lived situations whereby this Guardian Post, the newspaper, and many journalists have been suspended from the media, from the public outings and all whatnot. For no just, we don't really see the reasons that they advance, palpable enough to, of course, to have warranted such sanctions.
But I think the situation was abated anyway.
Well, it could have been abated, but then the problem is, what is the reason? And then what chance did they give for the other persons who are affected to take an appeal on those issues? There are some of I'm afraid that some of those old men, whom we call them seasoned journalists, they are really there. They're there. We respect them with all due respect to the authority. But there are times they go temperamental also. Yeah, they go temperamental, and it's not good when a citizen, somebody who is highly respected by the nation, or a body of people made of, respected by the nation, should go temperamental. There are some of these issues there are some of the issues that are handled by the press that are supposed to be regulated by normal, by the law officers, by law courts.
Arbitration.
You see, by simple arbitration, by law courts even. Because whatever a journalist must have done, it can give rise to a legal suit. Allow the forces of the public forces to come into play. Don't get in and become, we have banned press censorship. Don't get in with another censorship through the National Communications Council. I think that is what the National Communications Council does at certain moments, is tantamount to press censorship, yes, which we have actually decried, and which we thought that we have evolved from that, and it should actually not come back again into the limelight. It's an ugly thing. So when the National Communications Council, which is supposed to regulate, and only regulate because the newspapers, the parties involved in the newspaper article, they are there, they have their rights. They can sue for defamation. They can take whatever action that it warrants. But then when the National Communications Council comes in without anybody complaining and takes decisions that are really, that touch on individual rights, I think it's actually press censorship.
Okay, thanks very much, Barrister. In fact, thanks, Moi Patrick. We know that the press is celebrating today, and in Cameroon, the Commonwealth Journalists Association, the Cameroon English-speaking Journalists Association, Kamasech, right? And of course, the Association of Newspaper Publishers are meeting in Buea today for the celebration. Contacts Charlie Ditcher and, of course, His Royal Majesty Paul Kemanyan, who are piloting the events, plus Kamasech President Tricia Oben. Now let's move to something different after this break. Welcome back. There is the excruciating problem or endless problem of land grabbing in Cameroon. And of course, this has been the worry in so many areas. In the northwest region, we discovered that the Catholic Church was at loggerhead with the Mbororo grazers. In the southwest region, the Bakri land claims is still very strong. And in other regions too, some people are asking for a return to their land. Barrister, let us maybe set the salvo with what obtained in the northwest region, where you're coming from, and we got it from press that the situation was abated because of the good sense of the Archbishop of the Bamenda Ecclesiastic Province. Well,
I've just been reading the press too about the developments over that land issue. Just like you, there are some of my colleagues who are handling it as a file in their offices, so they are very much privy to the detailed facts thereof. But if I'm asked to comment, I can just comment from what I have been going through in the media. What is there is that the Catholic Church, through the Bamenda Archdiocese, they earmarked the university, they getting larger premises for the Bamenda University, Catholic University. So they actually called on the government to give them land for that project. And the government, they put in place every necessary machinery. They went through all the stages, what it takes to expropriate land for private use by the government. They did all what was required. I cannot understand again what happened along the line that the people who took part at those deliberations, those meetings leading to the expropriation of that parcel of land for the use of the Bamenda Catholic University, backpedaled. I cannot understand what actually happened, but I have been made to understand that they seem to have actually backpedaled, or some particular members of that community, the Mbororo community, seem to have actually brought total mayhem to the rest of the community when it came to the moving out of the place whereby they have been compensated. So that again brought some atmosphere of turmoil over that situation. The Catholic Church seemed to have seems to have hands off for the sake of peace. I don't know how far that is true, but I've read in the press that they have decided not to go on again with that investment, which is unfortunate.
Let us take the case of the Bakri people now, who are asking for land, now expropriation. What are the legal rules to expropriate land?
In fact, with regard to expropriation, you know, the person who is interested in expropriating land applies to the competent ministry, which is the Ministry of Lands, you know, through the divisional officer, or there's a particular list of documents he's supposed to come out with. He applies, and then they make an estimate of what it takes to expropriate a particular land, the compensation that is due to whosoever has interest in the land. All those things are calculated and put in place. And then a compensation mechanism is put in place, and then once it has been guaranteed, the government now comes out with a decision, expropriate a parcel of land and give it to the interested party. It is the interested party that actually pays the compensation. If it pays the compensation, it is the government pays a compensation at certain rates that are well defined. And the documents are, you don't have, when the government is interested in expropriation, you don't have any choice. You only have to. It is actually decided upon for the general interest, it's for public interest. And there's no private interest. There's no private interest that surpasses public interest.
In this case, what is the role now of the customary or traditional authorities in that?
They come in to help in making sure that message about the expropriation is made known to the local community. They are there to represent the local community, and the government passes through them to make sure that at least the message goes down to the grassroots, to the people who are concerned, who are victims of that expropriation. So they understand. There are parties to the commission that does the evaluation and takes care of compensating the parties concerned. You see, it's actually, you know, the traditional rulers are like part of the administrative machinery. So they pass, together with the administration, they make the local population understand. They take compensation that is due, and the compensation is done according to laid down standards. So once that has been decided upon, that expropriation will take place, you don't have a choice. You only have to quit, because it's the government that is doing it, and it's doing it for the general interest of the public, and for a particular project which they consider for the paramount interest of the entire population. So once that has been decided upon, there is no private interest that can prevail. So that's actually what it's supposed to be. After they evaluate all those things, they come out with a decision. It's a decision that comes out, expropriated land, with a particular map, with a particular surface area, well defined, pillars planted. It is not like you know, they do it before they come to evaluate what area it is. So when I heard that you know, the case of Bamenda and Bamenda Catholic University, and the population that you know, they gave a particular piece of land, the Catholic University seem to have extended. I don't know how possible that is, because everything is mapped out and the area is defined. There is no way by which you can exceed the boundaries. I don't know actually what happened detailedly, because I'm not privy to the file, but it is difficult for it to happen that way. Because the authorities take all necessary measures, they map out the area, they come out with a site plan, pillars planted, and there's no way by which you can exceed it.
Well, thanks very much. In fact, it's not been easy for us to digest all of what we had for you. But I want to graciously thank you for having accepted my invitation to be part of this program. Patrick, one last word. The media will be celebrating in Boya today. Yeah,
well, maybe since they're celebrating, I should wish them happy feast day, if I thought what they are celebrating is genuine, because to me, I don't see what calls for a celebration on a day like this. And we wish our friends of the press who have been sending us messages, Ferdinand Difo, and of course Barrister Ntufo Nikwale. Thanks very much, Barrister. Last word.
In fact, I want to congratulate all the active forces of this country who have been actually fighting to make sure that change comes to take place in all the spheres of our society. Because you know, there is nothing as constant as change. Change will always come, and I thank all the journalists who have been fighting to make sure that we realize our objective of good governance. And what is that again? That dream of in 2035. Well, maybe some say it's far-fetched. It's far-fetched.
Thanks very much, Barrister, and to you out there, thank you for having been part of the program. And if you want to get a rebroadcast of the program, you tune to Canal 2 M4. Or you go to www.canadainternational.net. Tune to Canada Info at 7 p.m. today. And from all of us, it's goodbye from me.